Welcome back to Bits Be Trippin'. Now we got a great episode for you coming up here. How to 6 R9 280Xs. And I'm not talking just any R9 280X. I'm talking 6 Sapphire Toxics coupled with one of those H81 Pro BTC boards. This is going to be sick. This is your host Carter. Let's get into this. Now we've covered a couple Toxics in a few of these episodes that we've had here, but never 6 of them in the same board. We wanted to make sure that 1, this is achievable. 2, you guys can actually see this thing actually working and being built in front of you, and we'll stair step this thing right here for you. Now right out of the gate, I'm going to be straight up with you. We had some issues first setting this up, trying to get that 6th card going. I'm going to walk you through this entire episode, each step that we went through to the point of finding the issue, squashing the issue, and then getting it done. All right, for the pertinence, we use that Intel G3220 Haswell for processor, Crucial Ballistic Memory, H81 Pro BTC motherboard, Thermaltake 1200 watt PSUs, a pair of those, the gold pluses, and then a PNY 120 gig SSD. Now I've seen a few threads asking why we keep using this board versus any others. It's simple, they freaking work. But there are some caveats with this board, and I'm going to highlight those here. First and foremost, make sure you plug in those 2 4-pin Molex connectors on that board. I've seen a few people saying, oh, they try to leave them unplugged. This board doesn't work without those plugged in, so you need to plug those in. Additionally, we do not use powered risers at all with this board on any of our rigs. It doesn't work right. We've tried both ways. I got video. I will show you. I will dedicate an entire episode to showing you how this board does not like powered risers. We've had several man hours trying to work with this board in various combos. The ribbon-based, unpowered risers, bar none, are the best. We have the most success with those. You'll notice in the video also we're using a modified version of our, what I would call our BTC case, the case that we have shown everybody how to build. We made a couple adjustments to it, some by suggestion and some by just seeing how the power supplies were connecting and attaching to the case. We had a couple cross member bars to be able to screw those power supplies in place, and really made this case to be solid for 2 power supplies. In addition to that, I wanted to go ahead and highlight quickly adding in the adapter, the little metal piece that allows you to bridge the 2nd power supply and enable that and turn that on. You obviously want to cover that up. We put a piece of thick Gorilla tape on it and then tighten there all the cables up and really kind of do that separation. Once you get these in there, obviously it becomes spaghetti, so it's good to get a handle on the cables when you're putting them in these cases. The last mod we went ahead and did on this case, we put a power switch on it. Wanted to put something versus having it to override the case using a screwdriver, so we went ahead and just put a power switch on it. So just making a few mentions there, because I know a few people will probably ask saying, hey, you didn't show us how to build that portion of it, or where'd you get those switches and stuff. We'll put some of the detail into the lower portion of the video here, where you can get these switches and the added additions to the case to help you if you've made this case and you wanted to expand that. Now let's go ahead and get into the first step of what we're going to be doing here on this, what I would call a stair step of installing these cards and making sure everything's working, and lessen the troubleshooting if you run into an issue. So the first card always is the 16X slot. Just trust me on it, that's where you want to put it first. Put the 16X riser. We're using, again, a ribbon based riser. It does come with a powered connector. We don't use the powered connector, we just leave it unplugged. Plug in the ribbon, plug in the card, boot it up. Now we're using 8.1 for this demo, mainly because we've had a lot of good success with it with multi GPU, especially plus 4 to 5 to 6 card. Now what we're trying to achieve here is to ensure, 1, that the first card boots up, no problems, it's hashing fine, lock in a setting, one that we've used on the other Toxics, and see if it can maintain that 800, 810 hash, which it does successfully on this run. Another reason for this stair step is I want to highlight something very specific for everybody out here. This rig has 2 power supplies. Right now we're using the first primary power supply that's plugged into the motherboard, that's powering the CPU, the memory, and that first card. That 400 that you see here on that is coming from the AC, coming from the wall. It's at 400 watts. What you'll see is The next 3 cards that we're going to add are actually going to be on the second PSU, which is not going to be drawing from the first, but what you're going to see is you're going to see the power stair step by up to 50 watts per card on that first PSU. Even though the second one is plugged in and powering those cards, you can see the draw from the board and see that additional overhead that I see a lot of people not calculating when they're saying, oh, you only need these 2 power supplies and that's plenty of power. What they're not looking at is how much additional power is being pulled on that first power supply on all 6 of those cards. You'll see what I mean as we get into this a little further. So now that we got this other card plugged in, we got it on the second power supply. So this is that power supply that we did the little override on. We got powered. It's going to be powering those rails for those 3 graphics cards. Yet the first power supply is still getting a draw from the board on that non-powered riser. As you can see, the power that we're talking here is anywhere from that 35 to 40 to even 50 watts of power. Now that's per card. Now we take a quick shot to see how the second card's hashing, locked in just like the first one is, a little over 800. So this is just 2 cards. These toxics are sick. 2 cards, 1.6 mega hash. Let it run for a few minutes, still pulling out around 460 and holding that 1.6 mega hash. Now we go ahead and add that third card. Again, hashing really well, holding the same amount, 800, and we see it climbing strong all the way up to 500 watts now from the wall. Still looking just at that first PSU. We continue on, add that fourth card, same routine, make sure that it hashes, no problem at all. Keeping up with everything else, we're a little over 3 mega hash now, and again, another stair step of around 50 watts of power on that first PSU. That first PSU still only has 1 card on it, and it's pulling over 550 watts now, powering all those other cards along with it. Now we add the 5th card, and here, as we notice, and you see me zoom in a little bit here, this card was a little finicky. It was obviously showing lower than everything else on the hashing. I go ahead and point that out, showing that it's around 600 using the same settings. Now this is the second card on that first power supply, so we're close up to around 850, 900 watts AC from the wall now from that first power supply, still holding around 160. So I want to go ahead and take the 6th card, put it in that 5th card slot, and see if the cards are different. And as we can see here, swapping the cards out, this spare card is hashing with all the rest of them. So here we are, almost a 4 mega hash with the 5 cards in here. They're all holding around 807. Real strong runners. Again, taking a look at the kilowatt, close to 1,000 watts from the wall on that first power supply. And of course, it looks like all good things come to an end as we put the 6th card in there and find that Windows doesn't like to play with this particular card. Now, this is something that we did not experience with any of our 270 rig builds. For whatever reason, the 270 is set up fine. We did have an exclamation point on the Gigabyte series that we did, but not to the extent of this, the issue that we had with these R9 280Xs. Several other folks out there, it looks like they've had the same kind of issue. We were able to track down a really nice thread produced on litecointalk.org. Follow the steps on this. I'll put the link in the description below. We walked through these steps. It took about 20 minutes to go through them. Worked like a champ. And as you can see here, we got that 6th card going, no problem. 25 minutes, 20 minutes, somewhere around there, and just follow the instructions explicitly and you'll have no problem. Now we let this hash with a few setting adjustments here, pulling it down to try to ensure that that 1 card that we had that was having the issues when it was trying to run the 800 plus kilohash configuration, we went and brought it down to that 750 kilohash configuration, which actually brings down the power usage significantly, where we're not pulling 1200 plus on the power supply. We actually end up pulling around 900, but we'll run it a few more times here for you, showing you the card running full out. Now, letting this run for a while, we see that the power requirement for this guy is close to 1275 watts from the wall. That's too much for these thermal tanks and to support the board and everything else that's going on. Now, obviously we could do some voltage mods, may hold that for another episode, but just what we have right here is too much. We have an extra CX600 off to the side. We're gonna throw into this rig and go 3 power supplies. So So now that we got this in here, we got the CX600 powering the board, all the little peripherals that are needed, and that's it. And then the two 1200 watt thermal takes powering just the cards. You got 3 rails, sets of rails powering each set of 3 cards. So we got one thermal take on 3 of the cards, another thermal take on the other 3 cards, the CX600 powering the board and everything else. And yes, works like a champ. This brings the power usage down to around 900 per thermal take, keeping them nice and cool and efficient. Additionally, it gives you a lot more overhead if you're trying to do a lot of different testing. Sometimes you'll throw the settings that make you use way too much power, but at least you won't clip out and shut the machine down. You have the overhead now that's needed and required for that testing and any kind of voltage adjustments that you want to try, or if you want to try to really stretch your arms with these cards and see what you can actually get out of them, get into that 830, 840 range on these toxics. You're going to use a lot of power, but it's kind of like having a nice Supra. You don't use it all the time, but when you know that you got the power and you want to show off to your friends and show that these things can do 830 hash, then you can kick it up and you're not shutting the whole machine down because you're out of power. Now in closing, this was a great rig to build. It was a good experience to get these, go through the issues that come along with higher end cards with one rig, one box. You run into power requirement issues. We had to split this across 2 20 amp connections. This rig in total was close to 2000 watts of power. A standard 110 outlet, that's just too much for it. You're gonna pop your circuit. You got to split these across 2 circuits, you know, keep safety first on that. It's a different kind of animal here with 6 cards, 1 rig, but wanted to show that it can be done, that it is possible, and throw in the mix of having the 3 power supplies in there just to show how that works. If you have any questions, I imagine you guys will have all kinds of questions on here. How do we get it to work? What are the links to things? Put those questions on there. You obviously see that I'm try to be very interactive with y'all out there. Ask the questions, I'll get them answered for you. We got a few more cool things coming up this week and then next week, and see if we can get you guys some pretty awesome videos. Stay tuned.
The bits be trippin'.